I don't see what this race realist stuff leads to, other than the than this idea that racial groups should separate.
At the end of the day,
well, it leads to a few things. Well, no, I'll tell you what it leads to. It leads to whites first off taking their own side. Because here's what I've noticed is that when you point out, like when you convince a white person to race realism,
what's white's own side in this situation? Because as far as I'm concerned,
when you point
people I care about. And that does include white people. That includes some white people. That includes some black people. That includes some Asian people.
Okay, so you're saying like, okay, well, like race. Okay, it's like you don't care about race, but like race cares about you. So like you can say like I don't care about race all you want, but like it doesn't, like at the end of the day it doesn't matter. You're going to be attacked for like being white if you were like in South Africa and stuff like that. Like you're going to be targeted and marginalized and suppressed like for being white. And the thing is, you're already seeing this within the Democrat Party in the US, that like whites within the Democrat Party are being like told to be shut out. Right. So like even among like what we call the quote unquote left, which I don't think it's even left anymore. It's just like a bunch of brown racial nationalists and a bunch of Saruman and Wormtongue whites enabling them. Okay. But like, but the thing is,
we're back on the black people are orcs now, are we? And on your fantasy racial.
It's a bit hyperbolic. But the reason I bring that stuff up is because it's a very quick way to explain to someone what I mean. Like when I say like when I say you're not left wing, like I say you're like Wormtongue and Saruman. Like, and the thing is that's kind of cheesy. That's kind of like, oh, you know, Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, right. Like,
yeah. What you're saying here is, I'm going to do the what you're saying here is, you're saying that white people are traitors to their own race when they act in the way that they want to act. That they act when they act in their own accordance to what they feel is the right thing to do.
Sometimes.
Well, see, this ties back to what realist knowledge actually does, because white people, by and large, have been fed a false narrative about how differences between ethnic groups in life performance are somehow due to the sins of white people. And by correctly explaining the actual mechanisms that lead to those differences, you dispel that sort of guilt that leads them to promote policies that are disadvantageous to their own ethnic group.
Like you literally just did this right now, Sherratt. You're saying, "Oh, maybe they're poor because of segregation," and like I said, okay, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's not the sins of all white people. That's the sins of a very specific group of
people.
No.
They tie it to all white people with this white privilege stuff.
Okay, well, some people tie it to all white people. No, I don't. We don't. Stop throwing
Brett, but you didn't. What you asked us though was what the point is in spreading this race realist narrative, and what we're telling you is that there's a common narrative out in society that blames white people as a group for a set of things, and that a good way to dispel that is to explain why it is that black people actually do have lower socioeconomic status than white people, and it's not the fault of white people. Yes, so the fact that you don't spread that false narrative, which I'm skeptical of, but even if you don't spread that false narrative, that's irrelevant. Right.
The way to racial profile people is the way to stop racial profiling people is to racial profile other people instead.
Yeah, you're talking about racial profiling of white people, and then suddenly you want to racially profile black people to sort of like, I don't know.
My objection. This isn't the problem. Isn't racial profiling? You're misunderstanding. The problem is that one ethnic group is blamed for something that they didn't actually do.
So we're going to blame a whole ethnic group for doing something they didn't actually do.
I don't think that blaming people for their genes makes much sense. If you want to put it that way, you can. But yes,
white people for fighting against the white race.
I'm sorry, what?
You guys have just said that the white people are turning against their own race. That is blaming white people for something they're not doing.
No,
just try to empathize with. Do you see? Assume for a minute that our descriptive view of the world is correct, then does it not make, if we were right about the race and IQ stuff, would it not then make sense to say
if you were right? Yeah, okay, but that's the point. You're not.
So what you're saying is that we believe our own beliefs. That's your fucking genius.
If you were correct, you would be correct. Okay, good job. Good job.
The point is, if the descriptive analysis of the causes of group differences is correct, then it would seem reasonable to interpret that by saying that white people are doing something unfairly against themselves as an ethnic group. That is the point, right? And yes, we believe our own beliefs. That's true.
Right. And moreover, and the point of race realism, like this is like the best pipeline for getting whites to start taking their own side, right? Is to
taking their own side.
Is to talk about
instead of like your average Joe Schmo, your average Joe Schmo
is to talk about these genetic differences between the population, saying no, the reason that these other groups are, I guess, poorer than you is not because of segregation, is not because of slavery, it's because of a genetic difference. Okay, and when you point that out, then suddenly all these demands for all sorts of stuff, it's not some sort of attempt to right a past wrong. Like if anything, like freaking the Atlantic slave trade was the best thing that would happen to these people because they got to live in the U.S.
Oh my! But no.
What do you mean? No? Would they be? Do you think they'd be better off in Africa now?
The Atlantic slave trade, where like centuries of mistreatment and slavery, you're going to say that's a good thing for people,
as opposed to being slaves in Africa, like because they weren't going to be free in Africa. And in fact, we actually saw there was no decline in the number of blacks who were slaves within Africa when the Atlantic slave trade ended. Like there were going to be slaves. It was slavery. It was be a slave in Africa or be a slave in the New World, and much better off being a slave in the New World.
Surely, much better off being a slave because the Atlantic slave trade stopped. There stopped being new slaves in Africa because the slave level maintained the same level, but there was
there was an economy for slaves.
There was no economy for slaves anymore, so it didn't increase and then drop because they were getting exported.
No. Like the slave trade within Africa was bigger than the Atlantic slave trade, even during the Atlantic slave trade. Like it was like 9 to 1.
Then it doesn't matter.
Like
there's still a decrease in demand, and therefore there will be a correlating decrease in supply.
In any case,
not necessarily. No, not necessarily. Not if it's totally inelastic. Not if supply is totally inelastic. Which, based on the fluctuations in prices of slaves in response to changes in demand, there's evidence that the supply of slaves in Black Africa was almost entirely inelastic. Which makes sense because you can't just go, oh, let's turn on the slave factory and produce more slaves. No, you have to go out there and get them. It's not.
Yeah. They would go out there and get them. They would go out there and get
them. Supply didn't fluctuate.
And in any case, this is esoteric. It is unrelated to the claim, the original claim by Ryan, which was these people's lives have improved. He didn't say there were no multi-factor impact in Africa. Then he said these people who were transported from Africa to the US, they got a lucky outcome.
Right. As opposed to remaining slaves within Africa.